Very good.
Okay, good morning, guys. Oh, nice background, Bob. Okay, Year of Learning by Dr. Paul Koningsberg in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nisan Hara, Nisan ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. Malcolm Mann in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Shur, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva, Marsha Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Oriel ben Harav Shimon. Month of Learning sponsored by Haran and Mel Haller in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bas Yehuda Leib. A Week of Learning sponsored by Gedalia and Phyllis Reese, ending today in memory of his father, Harav Chaim Shraga Feivel, by Oscar and Shelley Moll, ending today in memory of his father, Shlomo Yitzchak, and his mother, Rachel Bas Naftali. Okay. Also, a week of learning by the Belden family in honor of Rabbi Mordechai Eskovitz. Okay. Right. Day of Learning sponsored by yesterday, Esther and Robert Boriskin in memory of her mother, Peril Bas Hirsch. Also, there was a day back in the end of December by Rita Gruber in memory of her husband, Yehuda Meir ben Yisrael HaKohen. Marcy Kurtz on Wednesday, a day of learning in memory of her husband, Yosef Alexander ben Dov. Today, a day of learning sponsored by Bernice Plitnik in memory of her mother, Yita Bas Simcha. All right, tomorrow for Shabbos, Alan and Eunice Penn, a day of memory of his father, Aryeh Leib ben Eliyahu Zalman, and mother, Esther Sarah Bas Reb Moshe Nussin, as well as Alan and Helen Baker, in memory of his father, Chaim Mordechai ben Tzvi Hirsch, and mother, Gittel Bas Chaim Aryeh Leib. May all the Neshamas have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yashir, Neshama Talia, and the Chol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebenched Yar.
Amen.
Okay, that takes us through there.
Where's
All
Harvey?
right.
I don't see Harvey this morning.
Yes, he's there. He's there. He's just sitting down. All right. All right. I'm going to try to go through a lot of material today. All right. Whether if you've done it, fine. Just review. If not, okay. On Mem Zion Amud Aleph. Okay. We found that they was challenging Rav and Abaye, right? Back and forth. Nochalati shala asarala echadasar. We saw that, right? We did that. That the showbread was eaten on the 9th, the 10th, or the 11th. Lo pachot velo yoter, no more, no less. Ketzad, how is that possible? Kedar kol le'itsha, as in the normal manner on the 9th day, 9 days. Ne'afa be'erev Shabbat, that it is baked on Friday, okay, transferred on Saturday. By transfer, I mean the old showbread is taken out, the new showbread is put in, it remains for the week. Then the following week, again, the switch, and then that showbread goes to the Kohanim directly. I don't see Irwin this morning yet. Okay. All right, going on then. Okay. Ne'echal b'Shabbat l'tisha. Then it's eaten on the 9th day. Chal Yom Tov liot erev Shabbat. If Friday is a yontif, then the showbread is baked on Thursday, right? Ne'echal Shabbat la'asara. Then it becomes eaten after the Shabbos 10 days. Shnei yamim tovim shel Rosh Hashanah. If you have Thursday and Friday as yontif, okay, showbread is baked on Wednesday. The end, carried through to the following week, right? Nechal Shabbat lechad asar. It's eaten for 11 days. Now, why is this so important? Because remember, the Gemara had said the rabbis were prepared based on Shvut for a closer occasion to put it aside, but not for a distant occasion. So that's where this argument comes in. Lefi she'eino doche lo et Shabbat v'lo et Yom Tov, because the baking of the showbread, okay, lechem apanim, does not nullify Shabbos or Yom Tov. V'i amar tzochei Shabbat nesin b'Yom Tov. If you're going to say that the preparations for Shabbos can be done in Yom Tov, amai lo dache Yom Tov. Why then doesn't it at least put off Yom Tov? Amarle, he came back to him, and here's our point. Shvut krova hitiru, shvut rechoka lo hitiru. Okay, that rabbinic prohibitions for work, for a close occasion, they permitted, but for a distant occasion, they did not. Ulu Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and as far as Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Dama, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Haskan, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Haskan, who was the Skan Kohanim, doche et Yom Tov ve'eno doche et Yom Tzom, that it could put off a holiday, but it would not put off Yom Kippur. My ikalamema, what are you going to say? Baha pligi, this is what they're arguing about. Mar savar shvut krova hitiru, shvut rechoka lo hitiru, that one master held Shvut, rabbinic prohibition of work, okay, was permitted, okay, in other words, that work was permitted for a closer Shabbos, but not a distant Shabbos. Umar savar Shvut rechoka nami hitiru, and the other thought that even for a distant Shabbat, okay, work could be done, and doche Shabbat. Nami hitiru, right? Now, Meitiv Rav Mari. Rav Mari brings the following challenge. Shtei halechem. We're talking about the communal offering for Shavuot. Einan ne'echalot lo pachot mishnayim v'lo yoter al shlosha. It's not eaten less than 2 days or more than 3 days. Ketzad, how is that possible? Ne'efot erev Yom Tov, that it's baked on the eve of Yontif. Nechalot liyom tov l'shnayim, and then it's eaten, okay, after the 2nd day of Yom Tov. Chal Yom Tov liot echar Shabbat. If there's a Yom Tov after Shabbos, nechalot liyud tet l'shlosha, then it's eaten on the 19th, okay, 3 days later. Lefi she'ena doche lo et Shabbat v'lo et Yom Tov. Why? Because we don't say that it can put off Shabbos Yontif. V'i amrat, and if you're going to say tzorchei Shabbat ne'asin b'Yom Tov, that the preparations for Shabbat may be done on a holiday, hashta, now he says, namely, the Shavta b'Yom Tov Shari, the Shabbat b'Yom Tov Shari, that's when Shabbat and Yom Tov, it's permitted, and when it coincides. The Yom Tov b'Yom Tov mibai. Then if you have a Yom Tov and then another Yom Tov following that, is there any necessity to ask the question? Shani, it's different. Hatam ver. The Amar Kra. Why? Because there, in regards to the lechem that we're talking about for Shavuot, right? Namely the Shtei HaLechem, Kara Lechem. It's called Lachem, for you, right? Namely, Lachem v'lo ligvoa. In other words, preparations on a Yom Tov are acceptable for you, Jewish people, to eat on Yom Tov, but not necessarily for sacrificial purposes. Ula Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the Amar Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Hasigan, who says in the name of Rabbi Shimon Skana Kohanim, Doche et Yom Tov, that it does put off the Yom Tov. My Ikalamema, what are you going to say then? Savar, it's of the opinion, says the following, Ka Abba Shaul, it's like Abba Shaul's view. The Amar Lachem, to you, Lachem v'lo lenachrim. He understood it basically for you. It was permitted for Jews, but not for Gentiles. And once you say it's permitted for Jews, then it implies permitted for the temple as well. Right? Now, Shalach le Rav Chisda, a new piece in the Gemara. Rav Chisda sent the following to Rava, Biad Rav Achabar Rav Huna, by means of, one of his students, Rav Achabar Huna. Ask him the following shaila. Mi amrinan, do we say ho'il? Do we say since, the concept? Vahatnan. But isn't it taught elsewhere in a Mishnah? Yesh choresh telem echad v'chayavin aleh mishum shmonat lavim. Is the possibility that one might plow a single furrow of earth and at the same time transgress 8 different prohibitions. And now the text is going to try to go into detail with those. Number 1, hachoresh b'shor v'chamor. One is mixing 2 animals, right? That shouldn't be mixed. Not only that, v'hein mukdashin, and both animals are consecrated. The shor would be consecrated for a korban, chamor would be consecrated for bedek habayis. Second, uklayim, right? Bekerem, and what they were plowing for was to put inappropriate mixtures in the vineyard. If that's the case, what's the next one, right? Ushvi'it, and it was done in the sabbatical year. B'yom tov, on a yom tov. Kohen, and it was a Kohen who was doing it, right? Which was not appropriate. V'nazir, and the Kohen was also a Nazir, a Nazareth. Abeit Hatuma, and he was doing it inside a cemetery, right? So all of those were examples coming together to show how many possible lavin the person would be over.
What if the chamor is a bechor? Is that another lav?
That would be another lav, right? That would be another possibility.
Yeah.
Now the Gemara is going to come back and forth and say, well, let's reword it, or let's eliminate this one and instead put in this one. V'i amrina ho'il, and if we're going to use the principle of since, acharisha lo lechayev, then maybe in regards to this furrowing, plowing, we won't say he's transgressing. Ho'il v'chazi lekisui dam tzipur. Why? Because maybe his purpose in digging up this earth was simply to have enough earth to be able to cover the blood of an animal, of a bird that's being slaughtered. Now, Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa bar Shmuel, doesn't go along with it. It's a challenge. The land that he was digging up, ba'avanim mukurzalot. This was ground that was really rocky, sharp, pointed rocks. Ru'uyot l'kutashan. And really, it would have been necessary to make it cover the blood that he would have had to crush the rocks. Uktisha biyom tov mishawi. And do we even really permit any kind of crushing of rocks on Yom Tov? Let's say it's a little different. Ru'uyot l'kotshan kila'achar yad. Say maybe it would have been possible for him to crush the rocks in a non-normal manner, right?
With his elbow.
Okay, who knows? But sun ma, okay? Well, but that doesn't work too, all right? Because here too we say that that ground is rocky ground. Sun ma barzaria. Since when do we say that rocky ground is worthy of being plowed, of sowing seeds? Sun ma milamala va'afar tichuach milamata. Maybe it was only rocky on top and it was soft, loam, easy ground underneath. Now, coming back and forth. V'tepuk le mishum afar tichuach. And then you could be yotze, uncovering the blood of the slaughtered bird using the soft ground. Ela amar mar, okay, Ela amar mar barav ashi, batina. Now, he says maybe that ground was muddy. Vatina bar zuriya. Who? Do we say that muddy ground is worth seeding? Bamatunta. Okay, it's not really wet mud, it's moist earth. Okay, ATV, Abaye. So Abaye now challenges again with the following. Hamivashel gid hanashe b'chalav b'yom tov v'ochlo. Okay. All right, so he's cooking gid hanashe, so that's one isur. With milk, that's 2 isurim. B'yom tov, that's 3 isurim. And he's eating it, 4. All right, that's 4 isurim. It would appear. Lo kechamesh. According to this Braita, says Abai, actually get 5 sets of malchos. All right, let's see if I miscounted. Number 1, lo kemishum mivashel gid. He gets malchus because of cooking the gid hanasha. Number 2, biyom tov. Number 3, v'lo mishum ochel, gets for eating it. Number 4, ochel gid, I'm sorry, because for eating the gid, that's number, right, 3. V'lo mishum mevashel basar b'chalav. And he would also then get another set of malchus because he cooked meat and milk in general together.
And then ochel was.
And then lo mishum ochel basar b'chalav. And he would also get malchus for eating a combination of milk and meat together.
So that's 5.
So that's 5. So the Gemara says, v'lo mishum havara. So if he had to cook it, it meant he had to burn something, kindling. He should get malchus for that too. V'i omrin and ho'il. And if we say ho'il, right? Ahavara lo lechayev. Maybe on the kindling we're not going to find him liable. Ho'il dechazi le'letzorcho. Because maybe he needed it for some real purpose. Amarles, he said to him, Rava back and forth to Abai, Afri kavara, so take out the kindling. Va'ayel gid hanasha shel nevela. And instead say it was the gid hanasha of a carcass, right? A dead animal. Vahatani, but wasn't it taught then again in a Braita? Rabbi Chia lokin shtayim al achilato. That according to Rabbi Chia, he would get 2 sets of malchus for the eating. Ushalo shall be shulo, and 3 on the cooking. V'i'ita, and if that's the case, shalosh al achilato mibayale. Maybe he should get 3. Okay, we said 3. Is that necessary for that? Ela afika avara. So maybe again take out the kindling. Va'ayel atse muktzah, and instead replace it with the fact that he used wood that had been set aside, and because it wasn't prepared for use on Yom Tov or Shabbos, certainly not on Yom Tov even, and therefore he took that, and it'd be over on that. So the Gemara asks, Umuktzah d'oraitahu, and do we say that muktzah is a Torah prohibition? Amarle, and he says yes. Dichti v'haya b'yom hashishi V'hachinu et asher yaviu, saying, implying that it was the sixth day, and they prepared that which they needed to bring. V'azharata mehacha. So if that's the case, and you're going to say he gets malchus, where's the warning, right? And the warning is from here. Milo ta'aseh kol malacha, from the prohibition to do any kind of work. Amar le, so he said to him, Vaha, atu damar, but it was you who said, Ba'e minemi Rav Chisda, that I once asked Rav Chisda a shaila, Va'amre la, and others say, Ba'e minemi Rav Huna, that I asked the shaila of Rav Huna. Heve se ma'afar, if one brought a animal, right, a goat or lamb, okay, from the meadow, vishchato, okay, and slaughtered it, tamid, immediately, b'yom tov, on the holiday, mahu, what's the status? Va'at amartlam, and you told us, or amar li, or told me, Allah, okay, se v'lo habachor, okay, that it went up, okay, this set, and it's not a firstborn. Achat v'lo ma'aser min hatzon v'lo hapalgas. Okay. In other words, in this particular occasion, you said, right, that it's a acceptable korban, okay, so long as it's not a firstborn. Okay. Not only that, and so long as it's not from the tithe animals, and also so long as it's not a palgas, an intermediate aged animal. Okay. In other words, an animal that's between 1 year to a year and 30 days. Okay. Now, what happens then? The Gemara then wanted to challenge and see another example of a challenge. Let's take an example based on Memchet, Amud Aleph, the Nisachim, the wine libations. Okay? And we'll try to use that as an example. How are we going to use it? Well, we say, Min hamatayim, mimutar shtei me'ot. Okay, that when you take wine from an orla vine and you mix it with permitted wine, there must be a ratio of 1 to 200. Shenishtairu babor. Okay, that this had remained in the pit, in the cistern. Mikan leorla shebetela b'matayim. From here we learned then that we could have a nullification of orla 1 to 200. Okay. However, the pasuk continued, Mimashke Yisrael, okay, that it's got to be a drink suitable for the Jewish people, namely Min Hamutar Yisrael, one that is permitted for Jews. Okay, namely, Mikan Amru. From here, then, they learned the following. That it's not permitted to bring any kind of libation, particularly a wine libation, from produce that is not tithed, because as Jews, they are not permitted to eat tevel. So the Gemara continues. Yachol lo yavi min hamuktzah. Maybe if that's the case, okay, if it's something that's not permitted for Jews, then maybe we might think it's also not permitted to bring something that was set aside. Maybe the animal perhaps was set aside. In other words, that it wasn't prepared or ready, designated, I'm going to use that term, to be used as the korban. Okay? Particularly on Shabbat or Yom Tov. Right? Remember, we learned elsewhere that they used to bring the animals into a certain pen the day before so that they were ready. Okay. Now, what happens? Amart, you said, Ma tevel miyuchad. Okay. So he's telling him, no, you can't make a comparison between tevel and muktzah because of the following. Right? Ma tevel miyuchad she'isur gufo garam. Whereas tevel is somewhat unique in that its prohibition is due to its inherent self, namely that it itself, being untithed produce, there is a isur on it, garamlo, afkol she'isur gufo garamlo. So likewise, any other similar item that's forbidden because of its own inherent prohibition, okay, cannot be used. Yatsa muksa, that excludes the example of muksa. She'ein isur garamlo, because there, okay, it's not something inherent in itself that renders it not viable. It's because of something else. Ela isur davar acher garamo, but rather that there's a different and, so to speak, outside prohibition, namely that you did not get it ready in advance for that occasion. Okay? V'iyamrat isur muktzah d'oraita, and if you're going to argue that the prohibition of muktzah is Torah mandated, mali isur gufo, mali isur davar acher. What difference then would it make whether it had an inherent prohibition to itself or whether the prohibition was caused by some outside source, outside reason? Okay. Va'od, and furthermore, okay, so Abaye is still trying to challenge. In this case, hu da'amar, wasn't it you who said, chiluk melachot l'Shabbat, that we have this concept of the various avot melacha on Shabbat, okay, are each, in a sense, separate items. And therefore, if you do different avot melacha on Shabbat, you will be chayav on each and every one. Okay. Ve'ein chiluk melachot liyom tov. But there is no separation of various prohibitive, I'll say, acts of work applied towards Yom Tov. So the Gemara comes back. Ela afik avara. So therefore, okay, remove the example of kindling, right? Va'ayil atzei asherah. So coming back to our example before, right, of cooking, the gid, hanash, etc., etc. So let's say we take out the example, the prohibition of burning, and said instead he used wood from an Asherah tree, okay, which is of course forbidden because of idolatry. But azhara. So what about the warning that you would say, therefore the person should get malchus, right? Mehacha, based on the pasuk, v'lo yidabek biyadcha me'umah min acherem, that your hand should have no attachment, contact with that which is forbidden. Amarle, so now another participant, so to speak, in the discussion. It's Rav Acha, Berei de Rava la Abaye, okay, says to him, V'nalke, nami, mishum v'lo tavi to'eva el beitecha. Maybe also you could say that the punishment of Malchus should we apply to him based on a different pasuk as a warning, namely the pasuk that says, "V'lo tavi to'eva el beitecha," that you should not bring something that's detestable into your house.
Yes.
Ella afik avara. Therefore, remove havara, the kindling, va'ayil atzei hekdesh, and then bring in then wood that had been consecrated. So if that's the case, again, we ask, va'azara mehacha, and the warning then would come from here, va'ashrei, right, va'ashirehem tisrafun ba'esh, lo ta'asun kein Hashem Elokeichem. All right. So using that as a warning pasuk. Now, Amar Rami Bar Chama. So Rami Bar Chama is going to make another suggestion. He says, we see this machloket. How can we understand it? I'm going to suggest the following. De Rav Chisda v'Rava. the machloket that we have between Rav Chisda and Rabbah, machloket the Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. It's similar to a machloket of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua. Namely, the Rabbi Eliezer Savar Amrinan, that Rabbi Eliezer holds that we do say, apply the principle of since, Ho'il. Rabbi Yeshua Savar Lo Amrinan Ho'il. And Rabbi Yeshua says we don't apply that. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa. Vadilma, okay? And perhaps, he says, Ad Khan, okay? When we give an example that comes back to our original machloket of separating, okay, to apply to our original machloket. Let's take an example of separating challah. And there are two ways that you could separate challah, right? One is to take a small piece off each individual, let's say, loaf. Another alternative would be to say, okay, I'll put all the loaves that I baked in one container, and then I'll choose one loaf and use that whole loaf as a representative of challah for all of them. So we've got two methods then to apply how to take challah. So here's the challenge, says Rav Papa. Perhaps up to this point, Ad Khan, lo ka'amar Rabbi Eliezer hatam, that Rabbi Eliezer didn't say ho'il in that case. Okay? The amrinan ho'il, where he does say since. Ela de ba'idna, but here in this case, now, the ka'ayel letanura, okay, the island that he brings the loaves into the oven, kol chada v'chada, chazia leila didei. Each one of the loaves might then only be suitable for him. Aval hacha, de la'orchin hu dechaze. But here, in our case, where we say maybe he baked these loaves for the possibility, since it might be that guests will come on Yom Tov, okay, that's what he considers. L'didei lo chazi, that for himself they weren't suitable. Okay? Ema hachi nami de lo amrinan ho'il. I might therefore say that in such a case, maybe he wouldn't say ho'il. Now, Amar Rav Shisha bered the Rav Idi. Rav Shisha is going to come back with a different example. Okay, you say that earlier machloket, okay, is like Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Okay, and it's possible that maybe Rabbi Eliezer could, in a certain situation, not say ho'il, so he doesn't always hold by it. I'll give you another explanation, says Rav Shisha bered the Rav Idi. V'dilma lo hi ad kan lo ka'amar Rabbi Yeshua hatam. Maybe it's not here that at this point Rabbi Yeshua would say that he doesn't apply ho'il there. De lo amrinan ha, where he doesn't say ho'il. Ela de'ika chada, but rather it's possible that, in this case, okay, we might say, okay, that in regards to one loaf, de lo chazia la didei, okay, v'lo la'orchim, that maybe there's a situation that with one loaf, in other words, putting all the bread together and choosing that method of taking challah, one whole loaf, that one loaf might not be suitable for him or suitable for guests. In other words, he doesn't need it because maybe he didn't invite guests. Okay? Aval hacha, but in our case, he says, the chazi mihat la'orchim, where it may be that suitable for the potential arrival of guests, I'll say, Ema hachinami omrin ho'il, that maybe in that case, even Rabbi Yoshua might then go along with the principle of ho'il. Okay, now, the Gemara tells us, Amruha, the rabbis then had a discussion on Rami's explanation. Rabbanim. Kame de Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Zera, before Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Yirmiyah kible, Rabbi Yirmiyah accepted it. Rabbi Zera lo kible, and Rabbi Zera did not accept it. Amarle Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zera, he said to him, Milta de kashilan, something that has bothered us, va'acha kamashane, and it's occurred over a number of years. B'mai plige Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yoshua, where, what was it that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua were arguing about? Hashta amruha mishmei de gavra rabba. Here, somebody, a great man, in other words, Rami's explanation, okay, seems viable to explain this machloket that we've had a problem with. Veloni kabla, and we're not going to accept it. Okay, so he gets answered back, right? Amarle, he said to them, Hechi kabla, how is it possible that I can accept it? Datznina, because it was taught elsewhere in a Braita. Amarle Rabbi Yoshua, says Rabbi Yoshua, Lidvarecha, according to your words, Rabbi Eliezer, Harehu over mishum lo teaseh ba'melacha. If that's the case, he's transgressing the prohibition of you shouldn't be doing work. V'shatikle, and Rabbi Eliezer was silent. V'i'ita, and if that's the case, then, okay, le tama didi mishum ho'il. He should have been able to say that the answer, my rationale, is based on the principle of ho'il. Amarle. So now we see what happens, that Rabbi Yirmiyah comes back and answers Rabbi Zera. L'ta'amech, according to your logic, your reasoning, ha-detanya b'braita, where it's taught in the Braita, Amarlo Rabbi Eliezer l'dvarecha harehu over mishum bal yira'eh bal yimotzeh v'shatikle. Okay, that there's a Braita where Rabbi Eliezer says, but according to your words, he would still be over, namely on bal yira'eh bal yimotzeh. And Rabbi Yoshua is silent there. Hachanami, says the Gemara, here too, Delo ahaderle, he doesn't come back to him. In other words, he doesn't respond. Hakam ahaderle b'matnitin. But here, I might argue, maybe he's really answering him. It is part of our Mishnah. T'tznan, because the Mishnah teaches, Lo zehu chametz shemuzarin halav mishum bal yiroi bal yimotzei. That this really isn't the same chametz that he's being warned about in the prohibition of the pasuk bal yiroi bal yimotzei. Ella shatik le bebraita, but rather he was simply silent in the recitation of the Braita, umahader le b'matnitin, but he returns, comes back, and answers him in our Mishnah. Hachanami, here too, imur shatik le b'matnitin. Here too, I might say that maybe he was silent in this Mishnah, v'ha'adar le b'mechilta achriti, and he will come. I will say that he will come back and answer him elsewhere in a different tractate, in a different place. Okay, we're continuing. Right? New point, new piece in the Gemara. Tanya, the Braita teaches. Rebbe Omer, according to Rebbe, halacha ka Rabbi Eliezer, okay, that the law is like Rabbi Eliezer, that we may apply ho'il. For Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, halacha ka ben Batera. And Rabbi Yitzchak disagrees and says in our original Mishnah, where we saw the machloket, right, between them, right, where it says, Ketzad mafrishin chala betuma biyom tov, Rabbi Eliezer Omer lo tikra la shem ad sheta'afeh. And Ben Betera says tatil betzoni. That was our original Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Vav Amud Aleph. Okay? So going back then to our original Mishnah then. Okay? What happens? We'll see is in a moment. Okay? So Rebbe said the law was like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yitzchak said it's like Ben Betera. Okay? V'kamashi or Esa. So how much are we talking about this piece of dough? How big? What's its measure? Rabbi Yishmael beno shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says, Omer, bechitin, when it comes to a dough made from wheat, kavin, it's 2 kav. Ubisaorin, and if it's dough made from barley, loshet kavin, it's 3 kav. Rav Natan Omer, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Chiluf Hadvarim. According to Rabbi Natan in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, it's the opposite. Vahatanya. But aren't we taught elsewhere in another Braita? Rabbi Yishmael Beno Shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer says, Bechitin Shloshet Kavim. With wheat, it's 3 kav. Ubisaorin Arba'a Kavim. And in barley, it's 4 kav. Lo kasha. We don't have to say that this is really a difficulty. Ha b'chasichta. Okay, here in the latter Braita, we're talking about flour of lower or poorer quality. Ha b'ma'al yata.
That's better.
Here in the other Braita, we're talking about flour of higher quality. Okay, Amar Rav Papa. Says Rav Papa now. In this case, Gar'in, right, or Gari'in Chute Hasichta, we're saying worse is wheat of poorer quality, Michite mi aliyata tfei, from better quality wheat. Gari'in Sa'arei Hasichta, Misa'arei ma'aliyata. And worse is barley flour from, poor quality barley flour than better quality barley flour. The ilu hatam tilta. Why? Because there it may be 3. Vahacha riv'a, and here 4. Now, Amar Rav. So Rav says, Kava milugna'a lapischa. Rav is saying that a kav from the location of lugna'a can be used for Pesach. V'chein lechala, and likewise it may be used for challah. That the Gemara wants us to clarify. Vahatanya, isn't it taught elsewhere? On the top of Memchet Amud Beis. Chameshet Revi'in Kemach Va'od. That we have a basic measurement, that it has to be 5 quarters of flour, plus a little bit more. Chayavin B'chala. That's what we say one is obligated for taking challah. Hachi ka'amar. This is what it means to tell us. Kava milognai nami ahai shi'urakai. That a kav from the location of lognai is also similar to this kind of measurement. In other words, apparently that quality flour. Now, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef is going to raise a question. Hani nashe didam, regarding our women, In other words, our wives, our women, when they're baking challah. Nahug lamefa, kafiza lapischa. They're used to making a kafiza, 3/4 of a kav, a small amounts in order to to making it for Pesach, to making the dough for matzah. Amar le Abai, mai da'ataych. So Abai challenges Rav Yosef. Where is this idea for you? L'chumra, do you think you're doing this as a stringency? Chumra da'ate lidei kulahu. That's a stringency that ultimately results in a leniency.
And see.
Right? Deka mafkela michala. Because by taking such a small amount of dough, you're therefore, you'd say, you're negating, you're removing, I'm going to use that word, the obligation to take challah. Amarle. So he says to him, the Avdan ke Rabbi Eliezer, that they made it according to the view of Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya, who teaches, Rabbi Eliezer says, charuda v'notem lasal. Okay, if one removes the bread from the oven and puts it into a basket, hasal mitzarfan lechala. The basket therefore collects, I'm going to say, joins all those loaves or all those breads or all those matzahs as if they're one unit. Va'amar Rav Yehuda. And Rav Yehuda then says, Amar Shmuel, in the name of Shmuel, halacha ka Rabbi Eliezer, that the law is like Rabbi Eliezer. So therefore one would only have to take one out of the basket and designate that for challah. Right? Amarle. But then he said to him, Vaha itmarala. But wasn't it said in regards to this discussion? Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, says Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Lo shanu ela kikarot shel Bavel, shenashchot zo mizo. What? Wasn't it said that only referred to loaves that were made in Bavel, where the bread, noshchot zo mizo, means still touching, still attached. We all brought, let's say, challah rolls on Shabbos, and sometimes you find the rolls are still attached to one. Okay, aval ka'achim. Okay, but if we say, in this case, that they are like achim, namely, I'm going to say long or separated, right? No, it doesn't apply. Ha'itmar ala. But wasn't it said about this? Amar Rabbi Chanina, afilu ka'achim. Says Rabbi Chanina, afilu, even if they are long, rod-like, right? Art Scroll translates it that way, based on Rashi, and it made me think that maybe Rashi had in mind French bread.
Bread, right.
Long, right? Anyway, so now, by Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah asks the following shaila. Okay, Tavla, I have a board, she'em la levaz vazin, and that board does not have any rim or any lip. Okay, Mahu, what's the status there? Toch kli ba'inen? Are we only talking about dough when it's in a vessel, a bowl? Vaha leka, and on the board then that's not the case. O dilma avir kli ba'inen, or maybe we only need the air, okay, to say that dough is viable to be separated. Vaha ika, and here we do have the air, teku. We have no clear answer.
Right.
Tanya Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Omer hasal mitzarfan, that the basket joins them. Rabbi Yeshua Omer tanor mitzarfan, that Rabbi Yeshua says even the oven joins them as a single unit. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, however, challenges. Omer, when it says kikarot shel Bavel shenoshchot zo mizo mitzarfot, but our text specifically said that it's the loaves, the way they're baked or made in Bavel, so long as they're touching. That's what we say. New Mishnah. Rabban Gamliel Omer. Okay, says Rabban Gamliel. We're still dealing with dough and with the kneading of dough and the making of either challah or mat. Rabban Gamliel says, Shalosh nashim lashot ke'echad. 3 women knead the dough, okay? Ke'echad here, I'm going to say at one time, okay? Va'ofot, and they bake, b'tanur echad, in one oven, okay? Again, all at the same time. Zo achar zo, one after the other. The Chachamim omrim, but the sages disagree. And they say, Omrim shalosh nashim oskot b'batzek echad, that 3 women can deal with the dough at once. Okay? Echad lisha, 1 woman kneads the dough. Ve'echad orechet, and 1 woman shapes the dough. Ve'echad ofeh, and 1 woman bakes the dough. So that so long as women are still working on the dough is not going to become hummus. Okay? Rabbi Akiva Omer, says Rabbi Akiva, Lo kol hanashim, v'lo kol ha'etzim, v'lo kol hatanurim shavim. Not all the women, nor all the wood, nor all the ovens are the same. Zeh haklal. This is the law. Tafach, once the dough starts to swell, till tosh b'tzonein, then put cold water on it. Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, says a Braita, Lasha hu mikatefet. Okay, the woman who needs it, okay, she needs to arrange it. V'chaverta lasha tachteha. And then the next woman comes and needs it after her. Mikatefet. Then she arranges it. He ofa v'chaverta mikatefet tachteha. Then the next one comes and she bakes it and arranges it. And then the next one, vashlishit lasha. And then the next one comes and kneads. Ofa, she bakes. He lasha, she kneads. V'chaverta ofa tachteha. And then the next one comes and bakes it after her. Vashlishit. And the third one, mikatefet, she arranges it. The chozeret then goes back, chalila, okay, immediately, right, go through, namely, kol zman she'osakot b'batzek, so long as they dough, eino bali de chimutz, it does not come to become leaven, right? Rabbi Akiva Omer, says Rabbi Akiva, lo kol hanashim b'chulei, says, namely, Tanya, it's taught in the Braita. Amar Rabbi Akiva, says Rabbi Akiva, Danti lifnei Rabban Gamliel. I judged, in other words, I spoke this message before Rabban Gamliel. Yilamdenu Rabbeinu b'nashim zrizot or b'nashim she'ein zrizot. Are we talking about women that are diligent or not diligent? Be'etzim lachim or be'etzim yaveshim, with moist wood or dry wood? B'tanor chama b'tanor tzonein, in a hot oven or a cold oven. Amar lai, he said to me, ein lecha ela ma sheshanu b'chachamim. We don't only have that which was taught by the sages. Zeh haklal, this is the law, the general principle. Tafach, if it swells up, till tosh b'tzonein, put cold water on it. Matnitin, new Mishnah. Okay. Seor, all right, if we have dough, okay, and this dough is beginning to crack, all right, and we see it starting to crack, says the Mishnah, Yisaref, one should burn it immediately, V'ha'ochlo patur, and if one eats it, they're exempt. Siduk, okay, if the dough is cracking significantly, Yisaref, it should be burnt, Va'ochlo chayav, right? And the one who eats it is guilty, koret, right? Is liable for koret. So the Gemara asks, Ezahu si'ur, what kind of dough are we talking about? What do we mean, the difference between si'ur, dough that is only slightly cracked, versus that which is significantly cracked? Kikarnei chagavim, it's like the antenna of of the grasshoppers.
That's hoppers.
Hiduk, when it's severely cracked, shinit arvu stakam zebezeh, that the cracks meet one another. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. The Chachamim omrim, and the sages say, zeh v'zeh ha'ochlo chayav karet. Both kinds of cracking, one who eats it is chayav kares. The ezahu seor, and what do we mean then by seor? Kol shehachsifu panav. It's such that the dough is turning white, ke'adam she'amdo sa'arotav, like when a person is pale because of fear. Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, a new Braita, Ezahu Seor, what do we say is Seor? Kol shehichsifu panav ke'adam she'amdo sa'arotav, that where his face turns pale because of fear. Siduk, cracking, kekarnei chagavim, like the antenna of grasshoppers, divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the view of Rabbi Meir. The Chachamim omrim, and the sages say, Ezahu seor, what is seor? Kekarnei chagavim, like the antenna of grasshoppers. Siduk, cracks, shinit arvu stikin zebazeh, that the cracks intermingle one with the another. Okay? V'zeh v'zeh ha'ochlo chayav karet, and eating either kind results in the libel of kares. V'ha'anan, but we, Tnan seor yisaref. Okay, our Mishnah taught that seor should be burnt. Va'ochlo patur, and the one who eats it is exempt. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, isn't that the view of Rabbi Yehuda? Ema, I would say therefore, the Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, zeh v'zeh ha'ochlo chayav koret. One who eats either kind is chayav kores. Amar Rava, says Rava, Mai Tama de Rabbi Meir. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir? Ein lecha kol sedek v'sedek milamala she'ein lo kama stakim milamata. That you don't have any cracks, okay, significant cracks on the top of the dough without there being even more cracks below the dough which have begun to start becoming chametz. And therefore, that's why Rabbi Meir says chayav karet. And we will stop right there, okay, with a new Mishnah starting on Mem Tet Amud Aleph. Wishing everybody a good, happy Shabbos and stay well. Okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.